Well, hi everyone. It is the 15th of April, and I think I'm coming to you with a pretty profound historical video today. Um, it's because we've been talking about these EMP possibilities, the power grid, all the stuff that's being presented, right? And a lot of this links to this event, this historical event from 1859 known as the Carrington event, which supposedly created, and it's the weirdest story now, because first when I was going to start to do this, I started looking into it a couple days ago, and there's almost no information on the Carrington event. It's like it's mediocre. You go look all over the place, and here's an event that had as its supposed culmination. This event is supposed to have been a coronal discharge from the sun. I think that's the right thing to describe it. A coronal discharge from the sun, some sort of geomagnetic storm, right, that sent a solar flare to the Earth on starting, I think, at the end of August and peaked on September the 1st or September the 2nd, which created auroras all over the Earth. Uh, Light during the nighttime areas, and then widespread electrical disruptions. What kind of electrical disruptions are you going to get in 1859? They call it They say blackouts and damage to the telegraph system. But this is the big thing they claim is that the telegraph system was knocked down, and that's it. This was this massive supposed storm, and there's no information about it, and it seems like it had no effect, no real effect other than some lights in the sky. So I started looking into this for two reasons. The main reason I started looking into this was, okay, is this the reset? Because when I look into the Carrington event, and I will talk about it, what it is and who it's supposed to be ascribed to, et cetera, it just seemed like a fake event. And so I began to wonder, is it a cover story for, was it the cover story for the real event that had taken place, was taking place? Because this is right in the time of the Great Reset. And if it's some sort of real EMP kind of real event that takes out the electrical system and the power grid, because the Carrington event is being presented now as this is the big thing to worry about, this sort of EMP solar storm. And there's a movie, we'll get to a movie as well about it, from 2013. But if there was a real event that took out the power grid in the 1850s, for example, well, that power grid would have been the old buildings, would have been the things we talk about, the domes and the towers that's the power grid that would have been knocked out by a Carrington event, not some telegraph wires. In the course of doing the research on this today, just before I started this, I bumped into a channel by a guy named Harry Hubbard, and I'll leave the link below. And he's, I guess, some sort of science historical guy who's been around for a long time. Kind of goofy, but he's got some interesting stuff he talks about. Anyway, he goes into the Carrington event. And what was interesting is he went in looking for the Carrington event he has a number of old Encyclopedia Britannica, and this is brilliant. I now wished, of course, I had a set of 1980s encyclopedia, like 35 volumes or something, right? Because it's real that now those old encyclopedias are actually gold. I now recommend go out in your city to an old bookshop, because usually when the encyclopedias come in, they get thrown in the garbage. They're considered useless. They're burned. They're just bookstores won't even take them. Get some. The reason being is you can do what this guy did. Check the old encyclopedias for the information that's being presented on the internet now as fact. So he was wondering, when he started bumping into this Carrington event a few years ago, he did his video in 2017. And this is obviously a pretty smart, technology, well-read guy. He had never heard of it. And he'd read a lot of science magazines, you know, astronomy magazines. He would have thought somewhere one of these magazines in the course of the years he would reading them would mention this massive solar explosion thing that did all this damage to the telegraph system. And so he went into Encyclopedia Britannicus. He went in the 1890. Now, the person who this event is supposed to be named for, a gentleman named Richard Christopher Carrington, who we'll get into, is well listed in these in these encyclopedia. And he looked in one in 1890. I think he looked at another one in the 1920s, another one in like 1910, and another encyclopedia in like 1879. So he's got four different sets of encyclopedia going further back in time. You would think the closer you get to this event, the more likely it's going to be talked about. But in all of these encyclopedias, the event is not mentioned at all, like nowhere. It doesn't exist in the encyclopedias. But the Carrington guy has page after page of him. So when we look at who is this Richard Carrington, let's just finish with the Carrington event. So it's supposed to be a geomagnetic storm associated with a bright solar flare peaking on September the 1st, 1859. It was observed and recorded independently by only two British astronomers. Only two people supposedly saw it. One being this Richard Carrington, who I'm going to get into, and another, an amateur astronomer named Richard Hodgson, who has been very hard to find any information on. But we will try to get information on him as well. It almost seems he's listed as, when you look at him on Wikipedia, he's listed as a publisher. But anyway, this it says one of the largest geomagnetic storms as recorded by ground-based magnetometers. I don't know if one of these devices could have been in existence in 1859 to say how it could be recorded, but anyway, initiated by a major coronal mass ejection, CME, by a major coronal mass injection. Keep that word handy, coronal mass injection, and an associated solar flare, of which only two guys by accident happened to see it. This led to supposedly as all of these auroras all over the Earth. Okay, fine. And that the telegraph system were some in Europe, and many of them failed. That some of the telegraph, I guess the clicker areas would throw sparks off, and some things would catch fire. And then when I look further on, that was it. Nothing else is said about it. They try to go into some ice cores from Greenland as showing this, but like literally just goes to like similar events from like the 1960s, 2013. That's it. There's like nothing. So I'm looking at like Wikipedia, and I'm looking at other events. I'm looking at other areas about this. I'm here now in a Newsweek. Newsweek, big famous you know, periodical, technological and science, and it has almost nothing on the Carrington event. September 1, Carrington was peering through the sun through his telescope fitted with protective filters. Suddenly he saw a flash of light from a sunspot. Within days, strange things started to happen all over the world. The night sky was suddenly lit up with brilliant colors and dancing lights, so bright that people were reportedly able to read newspapers by the light of the aurora alone. And then you have the telegraph stuff, that the telecommunication system broke down, and that's it. Who's Richard Carrington? So Richard Carrington was born in 1826 in London. He died in 1875. He's the son of a brewer. So his father was a famous um, uh, alcohol producer. He, of course, as a kid, went to Cambridge University, supposedly as a getting ready for the church, but was more interested in scientific discoveries. It didn't take him long. He went in 1844. By 1851, he was already admitted as a member of the Royal Astronomical Society. So that's pretty quick for a guy to go to Cambridge. He's got to put, what, 4 or 6 years in? I don't know, whatever. But supposedly had come up with some, I don't know. I'm just reading briefly here, some reason as to about star surveys. Anyway, he's most known if you're looking to what he's most known for, Carrington is most known for, why did I lose Richard Carrington here? He's most known for discovering the movement of sunspot zones toward the sun's equator and showing that the equatorial region of the sun moves faster than the rest of the sun. But when you look into these Encyclopedia Britannicas, this Harry Hubbard guy had, this guy is listed as discovering like 1,000 different things. Like he's listed as like one of the great astronomers of the day, you know? Okay. And he's the one that just by accident happens to discover this. Now, he made, anyway, Carrington and Hodgson, this publisher guy, compiled independent reports which would claim to be published side by side in monthly notices of the Astronomical Society and exhibited their drawings of the event meeting at the Royal Astronomical Society in November 1849. Now, I'd like to see this. I'd like to see the monthly notices of the Astronomical Society, original documents to prove that this happened. My guess is they didn't, or for some reason it's being fabricated at this particular time. Because again, here's Carrington, very well known astronomer. Uh, Eventually wound up getting the what's the award he wound up getting here? Where is the I want to make sure I get the award right. The gold medal of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1859, and something called the Landale Prize in 1864, and an unbelievable career of detailed information. Yet the Carrington event, this supposed great event, appears in zero encyclopedias until about the year 2010, when all of a sudden it starts to appear in internet pieces of information on the internet. So this historical event is non-existent until around 2010, and it's like it got manufactured. In 2013, just 3 years after it starts to appear on the internet, we get a movie called, of course, The Carrington Event. And the Carrington event is showing, I just want to make sure I get the, I got to put the word movie in there. I want to get the Internet Movie Database description of it. So it's an updated version, modern world, right? News of a massive solar flare goes viral. Soon after, the power is out, phones are dead, water taps are dry, the radio is static. Days pass with no news, just people getting more crazy. A week later, the fight for survival has already begun. So this movie came out in 2013, just after seemingly the whole thing was invented. That it didn't it's like it didn't exist prior to that. And like I say, the guy who does this Harry Hubbard guy who does this thing, he goes into all the magazines and then eventually talks about a whole lot of other stuff, from Van Allen belts to Pangea to, I mean, a whole lot of other details. You can just watch the first 10 or 15 minutes of that video to see what he's got to say. But he makes a prediction. His prediction comes at approximately 30 minutes into the whole thing. And his prediction is that, and I wrote it down, the exact words he used. Where did I put it? I predict that the Carrington event will be the next Chicken Little event of the future. That the new great fear, remember the ozone holes? He talks about the ozone holes in the 1890s and how we were all in danger because of the ozone holes and we're all going to die. And he says the Carrington event is going to be the new scare technique this was 2017, scare technique in the future. And here we are, power grid shutdown, internet shutdown, EMP attacks. It all links to this idea of the Carrington event. Now, I'm not saying that that can't be done, that the whole power grid in one way or another can be attacked, shut down. Maybe there really are plasma discharges from the sun. But again, this Harry Hubbard guy has gone into asking, well, isn't the Van Allen radiation belt supposed to be the very thing that protects the Earth from this very thing? That there's this belt, right, that nothing can pass through. and that it blocks out all heavy solar radiation from destroying the Earth when there are these coronal discharges. So why does the Van Allen radiation belt no longer work? Right, is part of the whole discussion that many people have of why the moon landings couldn't have happened, because there's no way that any sort of object of any kind can get through the Van Allen radiation belt. As soon as it hit it, it would get burned up. I remember them asking the astronauts in 1969, just after they had returned, or was it after? I can't remember when they'd asked them, but somebody asked them, "How did you get through the Van Allen radiation belt?" And the response from one of the astronauts was something like, "Well, we didn't know it existed at the time, so we didn't have to worry about it." What? This thing that I don't know is 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. We didn't have to worry about it because we didn't know about it, so it just didn't exist when we went, but it exists now. That was kind of their answer. It was, again, I don't remember where I saw this, but it was one of the most bizarre interviews I've ever seen. So we have this event that doesn't seem like an event at all. Nothing happens, yet isn't listed anywhere until modern times. So, is the Carrington event just completely made up in our modern times and is um, used as going to be used as a scare tactic or as a presentation? We'll hear more and more and more about it as we get closer and closer and closer to whatever event is really going to happen to us, or is it like influencer slang for the last what happened at the last reset, and that maybe there really are these periodic things that come from, we'll call it the sun, we'll call it from the radiation field, if you're somebody who believes in the flat earth, from the firmament, from the earth itself, some sort of electromagnetic frequency. It could be something that's just hardwired into the simulation, hardwired into the system. And every certain number of years, 100 years, 150 years, 200 years, whatever, there's one of these events, these plasma events that just kind of wipe everything out, because the whole focus on people didn't have telegraph lines for a while and there were some sparks. Well, that doesn't make sense either. Like, either the system should have been completely not affected at all, because the way telegraph wires and electricity and whatever work, it seems strange in itself. I'm not an expert in old telegraph information, but again, this Hubbard guy is questioning if it would have any impact at all. But it might have had a great, some kind of electromagnetic charge like this would have had a great impact on system of the old system of free electricity. And maybe that's what the real what is called a Carrington event is really some sort of discharge, either known or purposely created, to make sure that all the old technology doesn't work. Because remember, we see pictures of cities, and the pictures of the cities are either completely empty with no people in them, but the buildings are all intact. So we might have just had a way of shutting down the whole grid at the time, shutting down the whole way the system worked, that the star forts didn't work anymore, the church, the cathedrals didn't work, the towers and the domes didn't work, the fireplaces didn't work, that nothing of the old technology worked anymore. That's one theory of what this is. Or we're dealing with the second one, of course, where you see the burned out cities, that the event itself caused the technology to go into, or they overloaded the technology, and the technology, which is built to handle certain fluctuations of normal electrical input in the system, from the above and the below, from the earth and the sky, got overloaded, and the whole thing just kind of started blowing up, in a sense that literally the city started to explode. But it's also interesting that the cathedrals themselves, which should have been the focal point of such a high focused energy, if my second theory is correct, the cathedrals should have all worldwide should have all been blown up. The cathedrals seem to make it through fine, as do so many of the old, like, Capitol buildings in the United States, and the so many of the old buildings in Budapest or Paris or Prague. So the city fires must be something separate than an EMP thing. But what this research is now telling me, because it's been bizarre. It's been bizarre to look into such a huge event that doesn't seem to exist. Um, like, is it just a total fake event presented recently to get us again to make up history so that when we get close to, or when the real thing that's going to happen now happens to us, they've got this they've got this piece of history to reveal, oh yeah, it's like this thing that happened in 1859, just they didn't have cell phones and computers and electrical wires in their homes and cars and airplanes and machine guns and whatever, so it didn't have as much of an impact. So maybe it's just fake, or it is an event. There was a real electromagnetic event, which I would not disagree with, somewhere, say between the 15 or 1600s and the late 1800s, some sort of huge electromagnetic event, again, natural or caused, happened on the earth that caused tremendous destruction and caused tremendous destruction of the old civilization that was here. And is this event just a simplistic historical overlay or a little historical message to those in the know of what really happened? Maybe similar to, yeah, things like Tecumseh's Comet and the very bizarre events of the years about 1812 to 1816, right? The year without a summer, Tecumseh's Comet, the volcano, the volcano in somewhere in Indonesia. There were so many very strange Earth events that were going on seemingly a major scale. At the very same time, you've got a world war happening in Europe. You've got the equivalent of a world war happening in North America. All of these things just happen to coincide at the exact same time. Seems too coincidental for reality. So I'm curious because I mean, I thought I could find a ton of information on this event. And other than a few Wikipedia articles, a few science articles that are fairly recent. There's now a thread on stolen history that was put out about a year ago on it. There's this video on YouTube by this Hubbard guy. When I look at other videos on YouTube, they're just the standard scientific story. Not many people are really questioning the whole thing. If any of you have actually dug into this event somewhere along the way and have information or theories or ideas about it, please let me know. Drop a comment. And again, I'm not sure what's happening, by the way, with the comments and the videos. This platform is I'm really curious. I think my viewer numbers are really low compared to what it's showing, compared to what the real numbers actually are. And I'm wondering if comments are kind of disappearing or they appear on certain platforms. Maybe someone on a PC will see certain comments, someone on a phone will see certain. That'd be another thing. I'd be curious to check, not just my channel, check a few channels, like check it on your phone, check it on the computer and see if the same comments are appearing on both. I'm not sure if they do. Anyway, the point being, Carrington event obviously is an event that is that is the weirdest thing I've come across. And as the key explanation as to what we should be getting ready for now, this huge solar slash EMP slash plasma slash whatever destruction of the power grid that's being thrown at us from a lot of different sources, what you might call the initial historical part of the narrative doesn't seem to exist. Seems to be just this recently created idea. So I'll leave it there, and you guys can go, look into it yourself. Um, please let me know if you bump into information on it, because I'd like to try to get to the bottom of this to see, is there any possible truth in this at all, and if so, what is it? Number of interviews coming up in the course of the next 2 weeks. I will do a video like in a couple weeks, and just give you the links for all of them. Um, Once I get through the next videos in the next couple of days, I will start the book process. I really want to start digging into, I'm going to do the two projects, and I just want to get my second project down because now the weather's nice, so it's nice to sit outside and finally getting spring, start to, I think better outside than I do inside, particularly creatively. So it's good to just sit outside and, springtime, time of birds and grass and trees and skirts on again. And so there's more creative energy flowing just naturally in the air. Um, so yeah, let me know what you think about this because I've studied it for a few days and the information I've really come up with from the study is near zero. And so whatever it is, I'm very questioning of the event. So yeah, let's see where this takes us. Cheers.